I'm now going to invite onto the stage our next key speaker, Donal Sullivan. Donal is the Vice President of Johnson's Control in Ireland, and we'll be talking to you about the power of data and creating smart buildings. If you'd like to put your hands together, please, and welcome Donal to the stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve, and it's very nice to be here. I was delighted to be invited by CBRE to speak at the event today. And for us, it's a significant partnership that I will explain in more detail as I go through some of the slides. But what I thought I would start with is just a short video that just shows you where I live and work and how that's relevant to data.
Every day in this smart building, 2,000 lights are controlled from one central management system, illuminating 170,000 square feet of space. 320 people arrive at 5 access card readers, informing 2 chefs how much food to prepare for the day ahead. 6 smart lifts automatically open, taking staff to their floor securely, saving 11 kilowatt hours of energy. 150 fire extinguishers, 100 smoke detectors, 15 fire panels, and 2 suppression systems protect the building against the threat of smoke and flame. 86 cameras secure the building's traffic and identity management, while 100 control points are accessed 3,200 times. One management platform centralizes it all. 17 meeting rooms are booked and secured through email calendar systems linked to access control. 150 vents manage 21,000 liters of conditioned air per second, heated or cooled as needed by Metasys software. 200 liters of rainfall is collected for reprocessing into the plumbing system. Only 1.1 watts of energy per meter squared escapes through glazing. 2 environmental arrays measure wind speed, sound, light, CO2, and humidity. 2,000 car parking spaces are monitored across 5 car parks, predicting free spaces over the following week. An IoT platform ingests 290 data points per second. 82 live bus routes and 15 train schedules are sent to the cell phones of building occupants as they prepare their journeys home. In 1 Albert Quay, Cork, Ireland's smartest building is powered by Johnson Controls technology and building management systems, accelerating what a smarter, safer, more connected building can do.
So for me, it's a great privilege to be in that building. That building was 2 derelict old warehouses until October of 2014. And so we were looking for a location globally where we could do some significant software research and build software teams that would look and sit on a layer that sits on top of our portfolio of products that we've got as a company. And then how would we, in the digital world, solve big, complex use cases for our customer base? And so that's what my team has a remit to do, and we have a significant software engineering team that sits in that building. So we designed, we specified, we installed, we managed, we built that building, and then we get to live in the building afterwards, and we research in smart buildings and the use and capture of data within smart buildings. So for me, it's a living laboratory. That's what our team do. It's a place where a huge number of our clients come from all over the world to see that building, sit with us, understand the journey that we went on, and how we can impact their journey going forward. It also is a significant piece of the relationship that we've built with CBRE, which for us is, a very, very important relationship. So we've got 3 different pieces of the CBRE company that are hosted in our building with us. So we've got a transactional piece of CBRE, their FM business who look after the FM services for me within that building, and we've also got project management from CBRE who look after Johnson Controls' huge retail or real estate portfolio across Europe. And so that means that we get to see all sides of the business and we understand many different challenges and problems that customers are facing, and it allows us to do joint innovation work together. So for us, that's a really interesting part of the day. It's what fuels our innovation, it's what fuels our thinking in this digital world. For us, it's all in that space, in that digital layer that sits on top of equipment, and that's what I'll talk through a little bit today, how we think about that, how we do that, how we secure it, how we make that relevant for people, how we save that data, requirements around that data and how you protect it, etc. And then maybe most interesting, the end user applications and how you make that useful and valuable for our customers and for CBRE customers. For us, we've created, and we spend a lot of time on this, a digital vault platform which allows us to ingest data of all kinds, so from our equipment but other manufacturers also. And that's one of the challenges that we've seen in the IoT world. There's been a huge number of IoT devices that are getting built and added into the ecosystem all the time, but what you've seen is a fragmentation of solutions that are built on IoT devices, and it's very difficult to put all those fragmented solutions together. And it also becomes expensive because you're re-engineering the same problems, you're re-engineering your data platform, your ingestion. There's been no standardization of data. How do you protect it? How do you secure it? How do you make sure it's GDPR compliant? So we've spent the last 2 years building an architecture and a solution that helps us deal with that problem so that we can have one huge data consumption engine, and then we can build application layers that are targeted at end use case solutions that sit on top of that. And for us, that's very enabling because it means then we can move quickly to the end use case and we're not having to re-engineer time and time and time again. So for us, we're taking our in-building systems, other equipment manufacturers' sensors and operating equipment into the platform, utility data, security data, fire, HVAC data, but also external data sources, things like public transport, weather, social media, which becomes important in the security realm, work order automation that we build in, and a bunch of others besides. So that gives you maybe some idea of the framework that we've designed. And then for us, what we've seen is, lack of standardization has been a problem. So we've adopted primarily the brick schema and haystack so that we can do data ingestion, but when we get that data, it complies with the format so that we can make good use of that data subsequently. It allows us to visualize it so that we can put it in the hands of users easily, so everything is consumable on mobile devices. So we're, in our world, in our industrial world, typically what you saw was user interfaces that were not very good, not very friendly, and were put in closets somewhere within a building. That world is changing dramatically. It's now all in users' hands. So how do you make that usable and consumable, and how do you visualize all of that data? So that is what this platform allows us to do. And then the analytics that you would have behind it, we've built significant data analytics capability, both in machine learning and AI, because again, for us, the volume of data that we would get through is significant. And to give you a couple of practical examples of that, in our security domain, we've got a client at the moment that we're working with, and they get more than 1 billion security events per year through their access control and CCTV systems. And for them, that's increasing actually exponentially because the number of IP-enabled devices that go into buildings is getting bigger all the time, but each of those are feeding new event and alarm streams in. And companies can't deal with that flow, and they can't deal with that increasing flow. So you've got to be able to move away from human interfaces to get the machines watching that data flow and extracting what's important and useful and relevant from that which is normal. And so for us, that's been also a significant journey that we've been on, and we've shown that we can do that in a number of domains, and we've more to do. Earlier today, you heard a little bit about GDPR. For us, that's a real complexity. How do you make sure that your data is GDPR compliant? And when you get into the video space, also how do you make sure that video that you capture and store that you're mandated to do and want to do if you want to do historical reviews of what you've captured and look at incidents in the past, but you've also got data privacy requirements now that would require you to delete and get rid of that video capture that you've done. So how do you deal with that conflicting set of needs and come up with a coherent answer for your customers? And that's the kind of work that we're doing, is figuring out that puzzle. In that complexity, for us, there's opportunity, and it means that we can provide services that help our clients do those things. The other piece that we're seeing and we're working on significantly is on cyber protections. It's a big emerging trend, and we've got a lot of customers coming to us with real problems in that area. The more IP-enabled devices that you put into buildings, it allows you to do more things, but you also create new vulnerabilities. And the more interoperability you've got, the wider that your penetration can be within a building. And today what we see in the market is, selection of equipment is still primarily being done by buildings managers, facilities managers, etc., who aren't all that well versed in cybersecurity and what it means and the vulnerabilities that they're bringing into their environment potentially. And it's also very difficult to give a comprehensive solution to how do you cyber protect a building, because buildings are complex and buildings may be fractionally owned or fractionally occupied. So you've not got one network to deal with, you might have many networks to deal with, and you've got a multi-vendor, multi-generational technology spaghetti junction of things within a building. But you're seeing market events already starting to happen where cyber criminals are now starting to target buildings. So you can imagine you could turn off the heating or turn on the heating, enable a sprinkler system to deploy, close all doors, open all doors. You can imagine many different things that you can do, and ransomware that you would then impose on companies. So we see that coming. There is no simple, elegant solution to that problem, but the architecture and infrastructure that we're building allows us to address that with our customer base. And for us, that's a huge investment area that we're making. And so hopefully I might be back next year and we can tell you a bit more about the progress that we've made in that space. There's a number of other application areas that I would mention. Connected Converged Security, which is a global business that I lead for Johnson Controls. And that's where we look at the next generation of physical security and what you do about it. And for us, what we're doing there is we're taking all the in-building security information flow that we get, but we're building context around that. So what's happening outside your building, around your building. The threat landscape is changing dramatically. And so you pick up information on social media that can be relevant. To give you a practical example of that, we've just last month, as we're doing this risk work with a client, we geofence all their assets, and they've got 1,000 different buildings that they're monitoring. And we found an active shooter event coming up on Twitter that was within a geofenced area of a building. So we were then able to increase the risk score because it recalculates based on events that you're seeing. That went to the top of the risk pile within their security operating center, and now they had a decision to make. Do I close that location? What do I do with that location? How do I get ahead of the risk or the threat that's looming? And so for us, that's significant enabler for our customers because now they can manage risk proactively, and where most security systems are detect and react, this allows them to proactively manage their security posture. And there are many other examples like that that I could take you through. And insider threat also becomes hugely important to protection of your IP, but how do you protect for insider threat? So that's also a new puzzle that we're working on for people, and that is where we look at behavior of people within buildings, where they are, what they're doing physically, and also we take the data of their presence on a network and we put those two pieces of data together that says, well, here's what's risky, here's what's unusual behavior, here's information that you might want to be concerned about. And so the threat landscape that we're addressing is the next generation of threat landscape that's emerging. We do central plant optimization. For us, that's systems of systems, so very big, complex, significant energy users, where we understand not alone the energy usage, but also the energy pricing and how to optimize the usage and the pricing in very complex worlds. False alarm reduction, for us, that's something that we do significantly, primarily at this point in the US market. And the reason for that is that in the US, if you've got alarms that call the police or the fire brigade, and that happens multiple times, you start getting an escalating bill for your company for false alarms and response to false alarms. And so for us, that's a huge cost-saving measure that we can bring to our client base by eliminating those false alarms through machine learning and AI platforms that we deploy. Location services is also something that's really important for us, understanding where people and things are within buildings. And we've got an array of different solutions that allow us to do that. And I'll speak through one in a minute, something that we've done with CBRE that's very impactful. And then the last piece that I'm leading is assurance services, for us is understanding what's on your network, the health and status of it, but now increasingly what's your cyber status. So what's your software level on all these endpoint devices that you've got? Are they all patched? Are they all at the right software level? How secure or insecure is the network that you're on? So again, that we can advise our clients the vulnerabilities that they're facing. If I speak specifically about innovation that we do with CBRE, this I think is a great example where CBRE had a client that had a problem, understood that we might have a piece of the answer, and said, hey, look, can we come to your location? Can we sit with some of your software guys? Can we figure out a solution? And the puzzle for them was they've got a life science lab that's full of really expensive equipment and very expensive people. And the clinicians and scientists within the lab were saying, look, we can't get all the research done that we would like to because we can't get access to the equipment that we need to when we want to, and there isn't enough. And we need to invest in more, we need the lab to be bigger, we need more equipment. And that was really sentiment and emotion-based, no really hard data to support that one way or the other. And so the question to us was, well, can we figure out that puzzle? Can we understand what that is? And can we help them solve that? And so we looked at the movement of people within the lab and also the access control to the lab. So how many people are in and then where do they go? And we figured that out and we thought, well, that would be pretty good. And it was pretty good, but it actually wasn't good enough because what we found is that there were people in proximity to equipment, but they actually weren't using the equipment. They were just close to it. So knowing they were close to it didn't really tell you enough information. So then we put an array of smart plugs on all devices so that we could look at the current draw and see if equipment was actually in active use when people were in proximity to the equipment. And then we added another layer of analytics on top of that. And so what that meant then is that we were able to profile the correct usage, who was using what was important, what the schedules should look like. And in the heel of the hunt, what it showed is that they actually didn't need to buy any new equipment, that they had actually more than enough. They had more than enough people, but they had a really complex scheduling issue that they needed to resolve, and which has since been done. So it was a huge capital expense avoidance, and it allows them to get more science done, which impacts their mission, which is the most important thing for them. So that was an innovation that we did together with CBRE, one that we're very happy about, and it's one that we will bring to other life science clients that we both have. So again, you know, for me, the message from this morning that we heard from Ian and from Kerry Ann was all about, you know, how we innovate together, how we do open innovation, how we partner with other companies. For me, this is a great example of how we attack a complex problem in a partnership, and we brought other third-party providers and equipment into the mix as well. So this isn't a JCI exclusive solution, it's a JCI plus other third-party equipment, plus CBRE, plus our client, sitting in, figuring out a complex problem, and applying all the data capture, analytics, and architecture that I described earlier to that problem to solve it for a client. So for us, that's it's stuff that we enjoy doing. It's stuff that we do more of. If there are anybody out there that would like to understand more about those types of solutions and how we go about solving them in partnership with CBRE and even independently with us, either is fine by us. So we'd happily see you in Cork sometime.